Moving on to agenda item number 10, it's a continuation of the quasi-judicial public hearing to consider conditional use permit request from Thunder Road Market LLC. This public hearing was continued at the May 7th meeting. I will now open the public hearing. Please let me ask that you restrict your testimony to matters that were not covered in the previous hearing. If you were sworn in at the previous hearing, remember that you remain under oath. I'll ask Mr. Gamble to summarize the rules pertaining to this agenda item. Mr. Gamble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a reminder to those who will testify this evening, as you may recall from the first hearing, the board must find that four findings of fact. One is the board must find that the development proposed in the application does not materially endanger the public health or safety. Secondly, the board must find that the development proposed in the application complies with all relevant town laws and ordinances, state and federal laws and regulations, and regulations proposed by the town board and issued by the applicant. Third, the board must find that the development proposed in the application will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property or as a public necessity. And fourth, the board must find that the development proposed in the application will be in harmony with the area in which it is located and be in general conformity with the comprehensive land use plan. In addition, please let me remind you, if you testify this evening, that your testimony, unless you've been previously sworn in, must be given under oath or affirmation. The board must base its decision on facts. The board cannot consider personal opinions unless the personal opinion is that of an expert. The board cannot consider hearsay evidence or hearsay testimony when reaching a decision. That is, the board cannot consider something that someone else has told you or that someone else has written. In other words, the board can only consider testimony given by a person who testifies at the hearing this evening. You're welcome to present exhibits to the board, and I think I speak for the mayor and the board saying I appreciate your cooperation in doing so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble. Mr. Harrington.
I did receive an email today from somebody, and the first two lines of the email said Thunder Road quasi-judicial. I closed it, but I did receive that email just for disclosure. Did not review the contents beyond that, and other than discussing, I received the email and not otherwise influenced by it.
Mr. Gamble, if you would just address, if you could, that email, because I believe the entire board received that email, and just to discuss the content of it and what you, yes.
There was an email sent out regarding objection to the time limitations set out in the agenda packet. This time limitations, and Ms. Pope can give you the exact date because I don't remember, it goes back to a policy that predates this board. Janet, can I ask you what date? I don't remember. Was it 2006 or so? But in any event, I think the context of the email was whether or not the witness, a witness under the 3-minute time limit had enough time to testify. The rules on quasi-judicial proceedings do not set an absolute time either way. The ultimate question the board has always had, I think, is how much is too much and how little is too little, and I don't have an answer to that question. I do believe, though, that, and I think past history bears it out, personally, is that the board has tried to consider testimony, even if in occasion some people went over. But I think the key, though, is with the 3-minute time limit, if you have something that is significant to the hearing, and I'm not trying to tell anybody how to testify, certainly, but please bring that up at the beginning so the board can get it and can hear that evidence. But the applicant is certainly given, I think, 15 minutes or so. And the reason being is that they have the burden of proving to the board those 4 findings of fact. So they bear the burden, and that's why they're given more time. So to sum all of it up, members of the board, I think that I think it is a fair time limit. I do not know of a place or a ruling one way or the other that sets forth an absolute time. Certainly the board has the discretion for flexibility, but it's not always easy to, I know, to know how much time to extend or what. I think the time limits you have, though, are certainly fair. And again, for a witness, I certainly would say to you that if you have a significant amount of information, you certainly can ask the board for additional time if you need to do so. The board certainly has within its discretion the ability to extend that time if you have the information that is relevant to the hearing. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay. Commissioner Disbury.
I just want to also disclose I've been contacted by email by the gentleman at Kyle Bush, and I appreciate your reaching out and wanting to speak as I carbon copied y'all and informed you that we couldn't talk except during the hearing.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Again,
And that is my advice, is that they do not talk to you, so that's where it comes from.
I forwarded on
I know.
so that everybody could see.
Is there any other disclosures that the board would like to make? Commissioner Compton?
Thank you, Mayor. I too was notified, and my response was I could discuss it.
Yes.
I've also contacted.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Commissioners. If there's no other comments from the board, we'll go ahead and proceed. And I will now ask Mr. Culberson to go ahead and give a brief summary of the request before us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The board's indulgence for the benefit of the public, I'm going to briefly go through the PowerPoint from last month. This is a conditional use permit request for property located at the corner of Mazeppa Road, Thunder Road, in the business park to allow for a convenience store with food sales and food sales. The property is located within the town's corporate limits. The land use plan for this area shows industrial. The predominant land use in this area is industrial, but the land use plan also calls for area to be set aside for retail or other service support to the predominant industrial uses in the area. This request, for the purposes of compliance with the land use plan, is in compliance because it would give the ability for goods and services to be provided to the employment base there closer than they currently exist. Property is currently zoned general industrial. It's adjacent to property zoned R2 and also restricted industrial. This is an aerial of the site. The property in question is roughly in this area right here. But at the corner, as stated earlier, of Mazeppa Road and Thunder Road. This being Mazeppa Road and then Thunder Road being the main entrance road into the business park. Site plan that's gone through and received a preliminary approval from the town staff shows the restaurant and convenience store with a canopy located to the side for automobile uses. It also shows a four-fueling location for larger trucks. There are separated entrances for the automobiles and larger vehicles in an effort to keep those two traffic patterns apart. There was a traffic impact analysis done for this site, and the results of that site showed that the applicant should be responsible for a dedicated left turn lane and appropriate storage area on Overhead Bridge Road onto Mazeppa, and that is shown on the plan at this point. Basically, it will be a dedicated turn lane to allow traffic to move in this direction. The elevations that are before you now also have gone through and have received staff approval. They are in compliance with Chapter 6, the zoning ordinance with regard to architectural elevations. It shows the building, convenience store on one end and the proposed restaurant use on the other end. As Mr. Gamble alluded to, these four findings the board must find in order to move forward with this request, must answer these four findings. Additionally, I believe at the time the public hearing was continuing last month, the board had two questions with regard to the LLC and also with regard to green or LEED certification. And I do know that the applicant is here tonight, Mr. Mayor, prepared to address those two questions to the board. And I'll answer any other questions the board may have.
Questions for Mr. Culberson from the board? Commissioner Disability.
This isn't a particular question for Mr. Culberson, just for the board's information. I just pulled up on the Secretary of State website. They are listed as an active corporation.
Commissioner, any other questions, comments? Mr. Herring?
I believe in our previous discussion, we had talked about several conditions that we were looking at. If we could review what those were, it seemed like we were looking at if they could obtain a right-of-way for a left turn coming from the west along that side that they didn't have. I'm curious as to whether or not they've obtained that, and it seemed like we had a condition about no overnight use. I'm just to review where we were with those pieces of it.
The one, I'm trying to find it here, the one condition, was it a left turn lane?
I think it was a left turn lane for them to build the access drive, but there were some right-of-way questions, and I'm not sure where that ended up or what the agreement was, but there were several conditions we talked about.
I don't think there was anything that was actually finalized. I'm trying to, if you'll give me just a moment, I'm noting this time.
Mr. Harry, while he's looking at, if you look at the site plan that's there, there is currently a dedicated left turn lane on Mozetta Road into this park. So there is that already exists.
But was there one it seemed like we talked about one that would turn in left to the access drive as you approach it, but before you got to the overhead road intersection. It seemed like we talked about some queuing up some additional lanes there.
You talk about westbound into this location? Because there is.
Correct.
There does show a proposed shared access there that would be incumbent on the applicant gaining approval from the adjacent property owner to share right of way in order to do that.
Any changes in where we are with that?
I haven't spoken to the applicant, Mr. Herring, so I don't know the answer to that question just yet.
Questions or comments from the board from Mr. Culberson?
And overnight use was not prohibited last time around. It seemed like we discussed that.
We did. That was a question I brought up as well.
We did
We
finalize.
I don't know. We did one.
We did, we were still going through.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it came to a abrupt halt once we realized there was some.
I just want to make sure any loose threads we were working on, we haven't lost track of those. I can't remember what they were. That's my point.
Mrs. Pepper, do you have any recollection from the minutes?
I have a lot of discussion. No one ever said, this is a condition, this is a condition. We continue before we ever got there.
Okay. If you see us, if you would, as you're kind of reviewing that, cue us up on some things that you might see that we've missed as we're wrapping this up. That'd be great. If there's no other questions from Mr. Culberson, I'll go ahead and ask the applicant to come forward.